Hello and welcome to Marginal Support, where support is anything but marginal. I'm Andre Lindy, and today I have a person who I think, if you're in the support community, and you probably are if you're watching this, Sarah Betts. Thank you for coming on. It's great to have you here.
It is so good to be here, Andre. So good. Um, I have been in support for, well, let's just go with over a decade. We'll call it that. And I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Well, I'm excited as well. As we were just chatting before this, the support community is so small in certain ways where if you know one person, you probably know five people, right?
Yeah.
Uh, So before we get into the meaty part of our discussion, I just want to ask you really quick, what does the support community mean to you? I think support people have a tendency to kind of hermit in their own companies. How do you feel like that places like Support Driven, what was it, Elevate CX and stuff like that help us try to get out of that hermit shell?
It's everything. It's so important. Many of us work at companies where we are the only support person or we're on a really small team. I've usually been in a situation where I don't have other leaders with a similar function to me to bounce things off of. So the support community to me is like my friends, my professional check me, my knowledge base. Support is always changing. It's one of those careers that you're just always learning, which is great because support people typically love learning. We're the people that are like, scrolling through the knowledge base, trying to find the answer to the question. So we're good at that, but it's so easy to feel lonely when you're the only one or when no one really understands what you do. And because support is sometimes off, away from other things, it has been in the past, we're being folded in more, which is great. But for me, I found the support driven community because my manager called me on a Monday morning one day at like 7:45 and she's like, "I'm quitting at 8 and you're going to be the manager." And I was like, I'm a what?" So that week I went to the support driven community and was like, "Okay, so how do you manage a support team?" And people were just there for me, and I felt so welcomed and so just wrapped up, like people were there. And I try to be that for other people. And I think it has been a way for us to, there you go, there's Jesse. Um, it's been a way for us professionally as a profession to really get out of that place where we are second citizens in a company and be able to talk to each other about, what are you doing to get a seat at the table? What are you doing to be able to communicate what customers need to leadership? So, yeah, it's everything to me.
The the status of who we are, I think, is starting to change a little.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you
a
look at the
lot.
terminology that's coming about these days, it's no longer I work in support or I work in whatever CS. Now that we are starting to try to elevate ourselves and say I work in customer experience,
Hmm.
I think has been a great boost to who we are to our industry. I think it comes with a little more respect. I mean, you look at where sport is going now with technology. It's both good and bad, but it is elevating us because companies are now looking at support roles and they're saying, "Wait a minute, these guys actually know what the customers are doing. Maybe we should listen to them." I mean, it's a shocker, I know, right?
Oh, yeah, talk to customers all day and you know what the customers need? What a concept. I think it's also because we were one of the first departments at these companies to really adopt AI. We were the ones, not always by choice, but we were the ones to really have to build these processes and these tools. And so now other departments are coming to us to ask, like, what do you look for in a good vendor? How do you keep it secure? How do you build something? How do you make sure that your team is adopting it mindfully? And I think that has helped to elevate us. We've also done a lot in support to expand our roles as we notice things and, be the voice of the customer, to be the community people, to build onboarding roles. And it's having an impact. Data is helping us too because we have all of the data.
We have all the data. One thing that you said right there resonates with me, and you said that we're builders, and we are builders. The interesting thing about support at where we are right now is that in the past, we were builders that had ideas in our heads, but maybe we didn't have the technical know-how or the means to be fully capable builders.
Yeah.
Now you see what AI has done with vibe coding and with these other apps out there that basically we can take what's in our head and now create these different things we've always wanted. How do you feel that we're now going to be interpreted or even respected now that we are having this capability in front of us?
I think it depends on the support leader and the relationships that they've built at the company. One of the things about AI I think that is very true is it's not just the tool, it's how you use it. I mean, like any tool, obviously. But if you have a relationship where you are reaching out to other leaders at your company and saying, hey, I have something for you, or I heard you say that you needed this, I have this for you, I can help with that, people are going to be very open to listening and collaborating. If you just come in complaining, obviously it's going to go differently. But we do have that wealth of experience. We have dealt with the teams. We've had those conversations with our teams about what does this mean for your job. We know how to navigate that. And so I think being visible and talking about what we're doing on our teams, what's working, what's not working, how we solved problems will really help people understand what we've been through and what knowledge we bring.
I couldn't agree more on that. One question I'm thinking about right now, and it's when I think about the support role in general, is that support's not easy. Support's actually a very difficult job. It's a very emotionally demanding job because you're talking with people when they're not happy. How do you think support people should start to address some of these feelings? Because in my opinion, burnout is a very real thing in the support world, and not everyone is cut out for this.
No. I think it's pretty obvious, really, which people are more cut out for it and which aren't. And a lot of us have gotten very good at hiring for that. But I think it's very real. We're being asked to do a lot. I think it's very important that we talk about it, and that we talk about it in a way that, I don't want to say doesn't make it personal, but that names the harms, that names what's actually going on. People don't necessarily understand when you say I'm burned out. I'm on a burnout sabbatical myself. And a lot of people, when I said I'm taking a burnout break, they're like, was the work really hard? I was like, no, I loved the work. I loved it. For me, a lot of it was like my personal life too. I went through a lot there, but I had been working in companies where things didn't quite align with my values and what I really wanted out of life. And I was being asked to do so much, not necessarily directly, but I felt like in order to keep up with my team size and my budget, that I was working long hours. And even when I got to the point where I cut my hours back and was very mindful about, I'm going to take my walk, I'm going to go for a lunch, I'm going to close my laptop at 5, I felt like there was so much to do. And I didn't quite know how to talk about it. So I think being able to step back and talk about, this week, this was what I heard, this is what I interpreted, this is what I felt I needed to do, this is how I approached it, this is where I got stuck, this is how it impacted me. We talk about in support doing postmortems when something breaks, and we walk through and we do the 5 whys and we name the root cause analysis, but we don't do it with ourselves. And I think it's time that maybe we do a little bit of root cause analysis on our burnout collectively. I've been very fortunate to do that for myself this last few months, but we don't talk about it enough. I think because we're scared. It is scary. It's very scary to say I'm struggling, but if people don't talk about it, how would anybody know?
This is kind of I think almost paradoxical in some ways, that we at our nature are problem solvers, but then when we have our own problems, we don't like to address them. We don't like to say that I'm having troubles.
Andre, we're fine. We're fine. It's fine.
It's fine. You're good. Solve these. Don't talk about your personal issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a bigger problem we have more in the common culture of companies right now. Every company says we're customer forward, we're employee forward. But the moment someone raises their hand and says, I'm not okay, that's when they go scurrying away and they don't want to hear it. I mean, so for me, I've had that, and I've even been in roles where I say, I'm not comfortable doing the work I am doing right now. This doesn't fit my beliefs. And it goes on silent ears.
Yeah.
So how do you think we go about trying to change some of this behavior we have in people, though?
I think it's systemic. I think we put so much on the individual. We've cut back people ops and HR roles, so we don't necessarily have the support. I know so many people are doing their own hiring. They're doing their own team management. If somebody comes to them, they're just kind of looking for someone else at the company that maybe knows what to do. I think we need to talk farther up. One of the things that has always been big for me is psychological safety, but what I came to realize is that senior leadership doesn't have psychological safety either. And if you don't do your own work, you can't help somebody else through it. So being able to name as founders, and I'm gonna go on a little rant here that's gonna be a bit of a hot take. So many people start a company because they identified a problem that they've encountered, that they've seen, that they want to solve. They start doing it successfully. They realize they need funding. They reach out for funding. And then their investors come in and start just editing the script a little. And this is going to sound like such a minor change. A founder goes in and, maybe they invent an app that tracks your fitness. And they start talking to the fitness community. They've got people that are using it. And then an investor comes in and says, okay, you need to get this many users and you need to reach this, revenue target, and you need to do it by this date, and here's a playbook. And it sounds great because somebody just came in and gave you a goal and an answer, and everybody loves a checklist and a how-to. Like, it makes it easy. But building a company is not easy. And so when you shift from, I want to make this fitness app work the best it possibly can for, say, moms or women, and you get a revenue target and a monthly active user target, you now have to go beyond that. And you stop asking the questions that you were asking before, and you start pushing instead. And now the founder doesn't really have psychological safety to say, I don't think we're going to hit that revenue goal. I don't think hitting that many monthly active users is reasonable with this ICP. So then you change your ICP. You change your approach some more. You hire a bigger sales team. And that all goes downstream because now the founder doesn't have psychological safety. Their C-suite team doesn't really feel safe because they have these numbers that are pretty much unreasonable that they have to hit or they get fired. That's not safe. And now they don't have a foundation to work from to help their teams who are now coming and going, I just wanted to help customers. I didn't want to build an MCP. I didn't want to build an agent team. I wanted to manage people. And now everybody's not quite doing what they want to do. Nobody knows how to say it. Nobody feels safe enough to say it. And then you're stuck. And that's kind of where we are. And it's quite frankly a shitty place to be.
I would not disagree on there. I mean, what you see, I think, is that you have these great inventors. They come up with something cool. But then if they're bootstrapped, nobody takes them seriously. It's like, what? You're just funding yourself? Why aren't people interested in investing in you? That must be not a good company. So we are almost in this strange state where if someone wants to build a company and not be owned by investors, people don't look at them seriously. But once you have the likes of, let's say, Sequoia or, these incubator groups come in, they're like, oh, you must be great because you're going through this incubator. So we are almost at this strange spot where to be successful, you have to sell your company away, and then it can't be what you want it to be, if I'm hearing you correct.
Exactly. It becomes an exit strategy instead of the app that you wanted to build. I think of it kind of like, that time in middle school when the fad hits and everybody has to have the right brand of shirt and the right brand of shoes and everybody just looks the same because you have to wear the right clothes instead of going, what feels good to me? Who am I? What do I want to be? And then you've got that one kid off with the spiked hair and the random outfit. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense to them. And that's awesome. I have mad respect for bootstrapped companies, but it's getting harder and harder and harder to do that because you have to pay people. You can't build it all on your own, or it's very hard to. And then very few people have the cash to burn on their own to build a company. And so then you discount the founders that don't have a trust fund to live off of for 5-6 years while they build a company.
I mean, who out there is, a billionaire is like, I'm going to build something and then I'm going to self-fund it myself. So I have worked at some companies where the founders are intimately involved day in, day out. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that can stay almost that way when you're at seed and maybe A series. But once it gets to B, then you really get founders come in, or you get investors come in and saying, I don't like this person at your company, or I don't like this idea. And shift. For example, one company I worked at, when they got to Series C and they were going then to D, one of the investors didn't like one of the co-founders. And so they found a reason to get rid of that co-founder, and then the company culture shift after that. I'm curious, have you seen that along your career also, where you have pretty much founders that love the product but won't surrender their ideas to investors, and then once there's a board in place, they find a way to conveniently get rid of one of those founders?
Oh yeah, I've been there a few times, and it hugely shifts the culture. Sometimes for good. I've had it work out really well. And that was a situation where the founder knew that he was the new ideas guy, and that's what he really loved doing. And he brought in a chief operating officer to help him kind of figure things out. And then that COO wound up taking over as CEO. The founder stayed on the board. It was a pretty positive relationship. And in that case, the culture actually improved because that COO, the new CEO, all these C's, really understood how to get a team to focus. I've also seen it where it really did not go well. CEO was pushed out, and the new CEO that came in was, a golden boy from the investors, did not understand the product, really just had dollar signs in his eyes, and that's all he wanted to do. And that tanked the culture. I was thankfully able to get out not too long after that. And I understand. Like in that first case, I'm an ideas person. I like the new stuff. I'm terrible at finishing projects. My house is a collection of unfinished projects. It takes different skills to do different jobs. And a startup at seed to Series A, even Series B, is fresh and messy and new, and you get to muck around and do fun things. And then you get to Series B, C, D, and you have to really buckle down and be serious and hit those numbers if that's where you want to go. But we don't give a lot of permission for companies to stay small.
I think that's true. Like, because you look at everything, we are $100 million ARR recurring, blah, 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 or, our valuation is this, and look our names on the New York Times, Times Square, stuff like that. So you're right. I mean, we judge companies by their size, but also by the money they keep. And then if they want to stay small, it's like your example going back to middle school. Oh, this kid is obviously not part of how everyone else is. Then we should ignore them because they're not doing what we think everyone else should be doing. I think this makes me then think of culture at companies, right? When you have a small company, you have a culture. It's easy to keep that culture. When you get bigger and you bring more people in from the outside, it starts to erode at that culture. How important do you think it is that companies try to keep this culture that everyone feels included, or people like going to the company for the culture?
I mean, it is important. A company is not a separate entity. I mean, it exists on paper, but if you got rid of all your people, you wouldn't have a company. We don't yet have a way for a bot to independently run a company successfully, so you do still need your people. And we know in support that if you have a miserable team, you're going to have a product that's not great, and you're going to have very unhappy customers, because a miserable person can't be cheery and helpful. It doesn't work. I do think culture changes, and that's expected. The culture, the way you interact with people at a company of 20 people versus 200 people is, of course, it's going to be different. I can't talk to 200 people a day and do my job and connect to all of them. That's fine. But you do need to find ways for people to feel included, to feel like their voice is heard, to feel like they're making an impact One of the core needs of a human being is to feel like we have an impact. In fact, this fun tidbit, my background is in child development. When babies are brand new, one of the first things they do is learn that if I make a face at you, you're going to make it back. I can impact you. I can make you do things. And then you start moving your hands around and you learn I can hit that ball and it makes a sound. That is original first principles development. Learn to swallow and then learn that you can impact your surroundings. If we take away that ability to make an impact, we are crushing the human spirit. It's so fundamental to our humanness that it has to be there.
I've been in companies that both have very good environments, very good culture, and very toxic cultures. And it is, to be put simply, it's soul sucking when you go into a company and they say, no fraternizing, stay at your desk, do your work. Would we talk to a child and say, don't go talk to your friends in the classroom? No, you wouldn't, right? You want these people to go around. I mean, from your experience, how do people try to either change a toxic culture, or what do they do when they encounter a toxic culture at their workplace?
Depends on the person. Some people beat their head against a brick wall and get really, really miserable. If you've got someone that's very angry on your team, it could be just that they feel like they're powerless. Being powerless makes you angry. It just does. But I think it's very hard if you don't have a leadership position to really make an impact on the culture. You can. I've done it before. But it takes a lot of focus, a lot of dedication, a lot of reaching out to other humans. It's easier as a manager, and I have often just decided, you know what, this is my team, this is where I have control, this is what I'm going to do, and try to make my team the most positive, uplifting, greatest place to work. But it's really, really important for all levels of leadership to recognize that the people are important. And while the numbers are also important, yes, if we're not making money, we can't pay our people. But focusing on the money over the people will always be a losing battle.
I mean, when we look at the time we spend in the day, they always say a company is a family. Well, that's kind of BS, honestly, but we do spend more time at a company than we do with our family, honestly. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to a company and you hate the people you go there, that just sounds like a dysfunctional family, right?
It is.
And so why should you put yourself in a dysfunction that you're not happy? I mean, if you go to a company that says the only thing that matters is money, you're going to look to make your escape. I think one of the issues we're encountering these days is that we are going to, since money is coming more and more of a focus, not like it always hasn't been, but we're seeing more toxic environments. So where do you see us going as an industry when we just see the toxicity rising more and more?
Not to a great place, honestly. People talk about the AI bubble bursting or the SaaS bubble bursting. I do think that AI is going to eventually cause a lot of harms. There's a lot of backlash. If you're not in tech, there is not a lot of love for AI. The average person, they're not seeing any value from it. The average person doesn't care about setting up automations. They just want to get through the day. They want to be able to make enough money to take care of their kids. And what we're seeing is this shift in income disparity, where when I was a kid, it was totally reasonable to work at Sears and have a home, go on vacation, buy clothes for your kids, send them to college. And that is absolutely unattainable for most people now. And I've seen a lot of people in tech think that, the average salary is like 70, 80K, or, I would never take less than 90. Well, the average pay for most of America is under 50K. They're not making $100,000. They're not setting up Claude Code to manage the contents of their refrigerator. They're working 12, 18-hour days just trying to put food on the table. And at some point, we're going to run into bread riots. That's just where society goes. When people don't have jobs and they don't have food, they go to the streets to get it.
I mean, it's one, for what you're saying. I mean, you look at a TV show from our childhood, Married with Children. Al Bundy was able to work at a shoe store and
Yeah.
still able to, have two cars and have a house. I mean, so that's where we are back there. And then now, I mean, it almost sounds like this may be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's almost like the French Revolution at one point where you're going to say, the queen at that time, let them eat cake. And the civilians are going to be like, no, I don't
Yeah.
think we're
We're
really
like, oh,
going to
just let
get
them
there.
eat Claude. No,
Yeah.
that's not what they want. Um, you know, the saying, people who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. And we have done a very good job of hiding the cycles of history. I know when I was a kid learning history in school, it was, memorizing dates and this battle and that event. And I did some homeschooling with my kids, and my dad's was a history teacher. And so I became a bit of a history buff. And I love patterns. My neurodivergence loves patterns. And so I started to see those cycles of like, this rises, this falls, this rises, this falls. And it's just because we never figure out that if you hoard all of the wealth and tell people to just, I don't know, go eat dandelion greens or something, they eventually get frustrated and then they destroy the leadership and then it starts all over again.
If you look at, okay, so I'm going to use this as my example. Where I look currently right now, I live in the SF Bay Area, and I think this is probably one of the largest places in the United States and maybe the world for basically equality differences.
Hmm.
You have project managers here that are making 700, 800, 900,000 K. And then you have people who are just working at a supermarket and they're not making anything. But then you look at, for example, I'm in real estate right now. I'm working in a real estate investment firm. And I see homes that 20 years ago were not $1 million. And now they're 4 or 500 million, they're 4 million or $5 million.
Yeah.
How is the average person supposed to afford these homes now if they're not in tech, right? This is where we're seeing people also getting pushed out. They're getting displaced because of tech.
Yeah. And it's happening in a lot of places. I think COVID was great because it allowed people to work remotely. We got a little more progressive in some ways that way. But the people from San Francisco, from Austin, Seattle, they started moving out to the smaller towns. The house I grew up my parents bought, I mean, granted, this was in the 70s, they bought it for $12,000. My brother and I sold that house 10 years ago when my parents passed for $350,000. And it went up for sale recently at $500,000. People in that town, they're not making $500,000 house payment money. The only way to get into that is through cycling property. I was very lucky in that my ex-husband and I bought our first house in 2004 for 179. And so we were able to sell that house, buy a new house, and rotate that way. So we had some wealth to be able to exchange for other houses. But if I had to start from scratch and get a mortgage on my current house without any help, even with tech salaries, we wouldn't be able to buy it.
I think, I mean, that's why I think a lot of people, they have decided, okay, maybe if I win the lotto, then I can be successful and get a house. But it really is turning into haves and have-nots. And now this is a talking point for a lot of politicians. So I think it is definitely, it's a problem that not everyone has a solution for. And when people say, "Oh,
there's a single
just
solution."
there's,"
It's not like, here's the Band-Aid, we're just going to fix it. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, a lot of creative thinking, a lot of people actually coming together and talk, even if they disagree on some points. Like, we've forgotten how to disagree.
that's actually a very good point, because you look at least, so I grew up in the 80s, and you look at back then, you could have a discussion with someone and be civil. You say, okay, this is my point, this is your point, we're going to agree to disagree. Nowadays, it seems like you're wrong, I'm right, and there's no middle ground. And so this, I think, is just a problem with society now today, is that we, like you said, we even forgot how to talk with each other. We've gotten so collective and so insulary that we don't even want to look outside our own bubbles right now. So it is a problem, I see, us just in society in general.
Yeah, we've gotten very into the labels. you're this political party, you're this orientation, you're this job, you're live in this part of town, you're a homeowner, a renter, whatever it is, instead of saying you're a human. And the truth of the matter is, pitting ourselves against each other is never going to get us where we want to go. It just isn't. So recognizing that above all, you're a human that has a family you want to provide for, and you may have different ideas about how the government operates, but fundamentally, I can understand that you want a safe place to live. You want food. You want to be able to have entertainment. You want to be able to pursue your hobbies, to be your full self of who you are. And committing yourself to your work only and having scraps to give your family, going to sleep and starting it all over again, I think we have collective burnout as a country. And I don't have the answer. I don't know how we just do a collective reset and just go, let's take 3 months off and chant in the forest for a while. That's not going to work because we do still need to run the country. But I think maybe recognizing that work is not our purpose, and maybe community and being humans with each other might be more what our purpose is.
So let me shift on this a little then, instead of us just getting into doom and gloom. One thing that at least I personally seen that brings joy to me is just my hobbies, the things I like to do. And people within my circle, and when I say my circle, I mean support in this way, we tend to like the same things. So I would love to ask you, what are certain activities that you found within the support community that people have latched onto and genuinely like doing together? I think you and I might share some of them together, but I'd love to hear your opinion on this first.
There's a lot of hobbyists in the support-driven community. In support-driven, there's an XDIY channel, and people will share, like, oh, I'm remodeling my bathroom, I am updating my kitchen, I'm doing these things. I think we all really love to ask, how could I do that? How could I make that? How could I make it my own? And so that's really fun to see how people do that. I'm a sewist. I love making my clothes, and I have this background is my joy background. Like, these are pictures of my family. I think that's baby Sarah. I've got pictures of my kids when they were little. I know a lot of musicians in the support community. A lot of people we like to create joy for each other, and music is a way to produce joy for someone else. Gardening, pets. I mean, my cat's been all over this podcast. But I do see that people are connecting that way, and the power of the internet is that it makes it easy to share that. It's hard for me to, go drag my kitchen around to show people, but I recently painted my kitchen, and I can share pictures, and people can be like, oh, I love that color. So yeah, having those moments where we appreciate what we make and what we enjoy is a fun way to connect with each other.
To that point, one way that I connected with some of my old coworkers, and these were people from different departments within the company, is that we would do a online campaign for D&D. So yeah. I had an engineering senior manager, a couple other people from engineering, and I forget which department, but we had used a shared platform for the map, and then we all jumped on a Zoom together, and then we would do a virtual campaign. We did online D&D for our characters, and at least for me, we are thinkers, we're creative, and what is a better way than to share that creativity with each other than to do a good old-fashioned campaign, pen and paper of D&D? Absolutely.
Books are another one. The stories. We love stories. People love stories. There's also a lot of writers in the community. The support-driven community has the content creators, and I know people in the Elevate community share what they're writing. So that's always fun to see. And it's not necessarily support. Like, I do appreciate the articles that people write about support, but Andrea Bagley she's at WordPress, and she has like a short form blog, and I just love her posts. Like, they're so reflective about, things that she's struggling with. Like, she loves sketching, and she was like, how can I sit down and sketch more and take that time for myself? So seeing that other people are kind of having the same struggles. Like, how do I sit down and do this for myself and actually make time to be me?
There's one other channel that I always love on Elevate CX. It doesn't populate a lot, but I still love it when there's posts in there, and that is the video game channel on Elevate CX. And I just love seeing what games people are playing. People will say, "Hey, I'm thinking about playing this game. Is it any good?" And then everyone will come in with recommendations. And personally, I love that. I mean, for me, what I've been playing lately was yesterday I finished a playthrough of Control, which I really liked, which is Remedy's universe. And then I'm going back through my second play of Alan Wake 2. And so once you play the two games, you get to see how the universe is connected. And this is one of the things I love talking about beyond the community is that you can start to geek out about, oh, what do you think about this part of the thing, or what do you think? Or I'm looking for this style of game. And then people will come in for recommendations. I'm guessing you've seen that when you start talking with people on Elevate
Oh,
6 about video games.
yeah. In fact, Mercer Smith tagged me on LinkedIn a while ago and was like, Sarah Betts, you need to play this game. And it was a game called Date Everything. It's a completely irreverent, unhinged game. It's silly. Like, it's a game where you literally date everything in your house, your bed, your walls, your lights, your electrical panel. So much fun. So much fun. And that's one of the things that I think gamers and support people have in common is there's a lot more with publishing being easier and tech advancing to where it is. There's a lot of game developers that are solo. My husband just played an adorable game. It's called Blossom. You're on a deserted planet, and your job is to turn it basically from Mars into a green, luscious, life-filled planet, going through these little things. Single developer.
There was
That's it.
one
One
game.
one developer, one QA, and some testers from Discord. And I love seeing that kind of stuff. Like when we were little, there was like Atari and Nintendo and Sega, and it was the big game stuff. And now, you want a game about, I don't know, following cats around? There's Stray. You want to cook something? There's a game for that. You want to do makeup? There's a game for that. There's a game for literally any hyper specific interest.
I think for me, some of my favorite games recently have been indie games, and they were single developers. There was I haven't played it, but the music from it was oh gosh, I'm blanking on it right now. But it was one person. He created the whole game. He did all the music, and it was just amazing. I have to look this up right now
Yeah,
because
I
this is
need to
going
know
to
the name
drive
of
me
that game.
crazy.
I'm still
What
obsessed
was it?
with I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, which is a deck builder visual novel. Um,
Oh, Undertale. That was the name of the game.
oh, yes, my husband played that. I watched him play it. Another one that I absolutely love, it's just a stunningly gorgeous game, is Grease, Gris. It's a game about emotions,
Huh.
about depression and working through depression. Uh, I think, was it Nick Canarito? Maybe it was Brian Levine. One of them recommended a game that I enjoyed called Wander Stop, which is a good one for this discussion. It's about a fighter who's fought and worked, and she's just burned out. And she stops at a tea place, and she makes tea and harvests plants and serves tea. And it's so chill.
That sounds amazing. I mean, see, this is why I think the support community itself is needed. Why we need to speak with people is because we can have intelligent conversations, which you and I both have had intelligent conversations even here, but then we can just go off on these random tangents and just enjoy the tangent, enjoy where the path takes us.
Yeah. I think support people are uniquely wired for that. The job itself is not something people talk about getting into a state of flow at work. The state of flow in support is being able to change. It's being able to shift ticket to ticket to ticket to ticket to article to article to article to concept to concept to concept. And that flow, that moving around through different topics, different ways of working, I think is our superpower. And so we can do that with each other in the middle of a conversation about how did you build your knowledge base and how did you optimize that for AI and what game are you playing and where did you go this weekend and oh my god, I heard this band and they're so weird and you have to check it out. Like that's just a support conversation.
And it flows. It completely flows.
It does.
I remember when I was actually interviewing for LG, I was talking to two people there, and this was for healthcare, and they came to me and they said, "You've never worked a day of healthcare in your life. How do you think you can do this job?" And my answer to them was, "I don't need to know anything about healthcare. You need someone that knows how to do support, and I know how to do support." And that answer alone, I think, got me the job. But it was because I don't care about your industry, your sector. You need someone who knows how to think strategically and think through answers that other people haven't even thought about.
Exactly.
So I can completely agree. Well, Sarah, we are coming up on time for this episode. It was amazing to speak with you. So I'm going to end the show on the question I ask everyone. And this is a bit of a motto for the show. So what I say at the end of every show is that support isn't just a job. Support is a mindset. What does that mean to you?
I think it is that ability to stay curious. Support is not about putting a defined outcome on something. You really have to sit in the uncertainty of what is happening? Why is this happening? Why is this happening now? Why is this happening to this person? And be able to follow those threads without forcing them. And I think support is curiosity and empathy.
I could not agree more. It is, we're always curious, but we're always saying like, "Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you." But why did that happen to you? So
just leave me alone for a while because I really have to know this answer.
oh, that is so true. Why can't I understand this? Ah! And then you almost shout "con" into the universe just because you're so upset at the same time. So
and then there's that celebration when you figure it out and you just want to jump. Yeah.
And you look for the high fives and you realize there's no one around and you just have to self high five.
Like, I did it. It took me 3 days and 4 engineers and an article from 2021 and I got it.
That is a perfect way to describe pretty much every aha moment I've had in a support job. So that is a perfect ending to this episode. Sarah, it was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I hope you'll come on again.
Thank you so much, Andre. It's such a joy to be with you. Thank you.
All right, bye.